little further out on the scale of, you know, how they live their life. So, but he had read books, you know, like Ayn Rand's book, and he talked about the important people in the world. There's so few people that move the world forward, and the rest of us kind of don't matter that much. And I didn't go for that kind of talk so much, but he always wanted to find a way to make money. Okay, opportunity came. The next year I headed off to Berkeley. The day before I headed off to Berkeley, I read about a little device these guys had. These guys that would drive around the country, engineers, they would take over phone lines, set up networks of their own. They were smarter than the guys who worked, than the engineers that worked for the telephone company. And we had one telephone company in those days, AT&T. And they had this little device called a blue box that would put tones into an American phone and dial free calls anywhere in the world. My God, this was just so intriguing. It was Superman stuff. It was like ham radio could reach out to the world. This thing could reach out to the world. Wow. But the article had a few hints. I wonder if it's halfway through the article. I thought it was fiction. I called up Steve Jobs. I started reading him parts of it. And I said, there's something wrong. It just reads too real. It sounds like maybe it's true. The frequencies they gave, the technical, scientific data, could it be real? It was a Sunday. We drove down to Stanford Williams Accelerator Center, went into the library, we went through books, and finally in a book I found the codes, and they matched the article, and now we knew it was real, and these codes really existed. Little frequencies, little tones. So we went back to his house and quickly tried to assemble some tone makers and record them on paperboard. Didn't quite get our blue box working then. I head off to my year at Berkeley. By my third year of college, you get to do what you want. I could take all graduate courses, software design, hardware design, make the dean's list. And I sat down and I designed this little digital blue box. And when you're trying to design something for yourself, not for a company, not for a grade, not for a salary, it's got to be the best in the world. You're showing yourself off. That's how I was. And I thought out tricks that I've never done, an equivalent trick to getting one little part, like a diode, to do three things at once ever in my life. I get parts that do two things all the time. So I did this great design, and I had little divider circuits that divided down to the right tones, and the blue box worked. And we just were stunned. Oh my gosh. Now there was this underground network of blue boxers, and some of them were famous. The blind phone freaker Joe Agressi out in Tennessee, and Captain Crunch, who discovered that a little whistle in Captain Crunch cereal made the notes 2,600 cycles per second, hertz. 2,600 hertz would seize a phone line and put it at your command. He walked up and down the halls of our dorm and blew this whistle while somebody was on a long-distance call. They'd get hung up on. So this was amazing stuff to me. And I just wanted to explore, what can you do with this? So even before the FBI had caught up with Captain Crunch, even before he got arrested 3 times and 4 times and 5 times, he was in prison a few times, back before anybody knew who he was, we actually ran into him. We got seen some information. He had worked at a radio station in Cupertino, and he came up to the dorm to meet us. I had been telling phone freak stories all through the dorms, and this guy was the hero of all time. He was some suave character that would always tap his girlfriend's phones and stuff. So he shows up at the door. I'm expecting this sleek, smooth guy, and here he is. And he hasn't bathed in weeks, and he hasn't showered, and he's missing 3 teeth, and he looks very strange, and his hair is unkempt. And I said, "Are you?" He says, "I am he, Captain Crunch." There was a lot of good codes that night. It was Pizza Parlor in Berkeley, and Steve Jobs and I then midnight. We had to drive home to his house an hour away to pick up my car so I could drive back to school for the next day of school. We're driving, his generator breaks down, his car breaks down, pull over on the side of the road. There's a gas station. We walk to it. Captain Crunch taught us how to make blue box calls on a payphone. Let's try it. We'll call back and get a ride from Captain Crunch himself. And we tried it. The operator came on the line. Steve was all shaken. He was in the phone payphone. And he tried it again. Told the operator it's a data call. And she came on the line and got scared. Cop car pulls up. Cops pull up. Not a good day. Cop comes over. He walks right past us, shines his flashlight into the bushes. I guess he thought we'd thrown drugs in there or something. So Steve managed to get me the blue box into my pocket. I had a code. Cop pats me down, says, "What's this?" I said, "Well, it's an electronic music synthesizer." The Moog synthesizer had just come out, the first musical synthesizer device. And I said, "You push the buttons and it makes tones." Beep, beep, beep. I mean, it wasn't very musical. Cop says, "What's the orange button for?" And Steve Jobs says, "That's for calibration." And second cop gets the blue box. "What is it?" I said, "Electronic music synthesizer." And he says, "What's the orange button for?" Steve Jobs says, "That's for calibration." And Steve Jobs says, it's computer controlled. The cop looks it over, he says, I don't see where the computer plugs in. Steve says, oh, that's inside. I mean, it's just always the quicker with the BS. You know what? When you're young, you can take risks, and they'll slap your wrist probably. We get in the cop car, and the cop hands me back the blue box. We told him that our car broke down, it's out on the freeway. The cop hands back the blue box to me, and he says, a guy named Moog beat you to it.
Nice.
Can you believe that? After all that, the cop was bamboozled by this music synthesizer story. So, that's a little highlight. It's kind of like the time that the Secret Service read me my Miranda rights, and I gave them a fake ID that said I was a laser safety officer, and I had an eye patch. Never get the chance to do that again. I used that ID on every airplane flight for 5 years of my life. I call it a joke, not a fake ID, but a joke ID, because it was a Department of Defense card, but I really wrote Department of Defiance. And your eye never catches that. Okay, so that was quite a night. We got home to my car in Steve's house in Los Altos, California. I'm driving back to school at Berkeley, and I fell asleep on the freeway and totaled that car. So that was quite a night. A lot of things happened. I walked all the way from Oakland to my dorm in Berkeley, taking on my roommate, and I said, good thing I didn't pay the $25 parking fee this quarter. Well, things are progressing. Electronics is fun, and it's cool. And even in my college days, I just every manual I could buy in the bookstore that described computers and programming languages, I just had to learn them all and see what I could do, and that was really my direction in life. I knew that now I was going to be a type of engineer that actually designs computers someday. After that year at Berkeley, total car, I said I'm going to work for one more year to earn me money for my 4th year of college. It's a very sensible thing to do. And I got a job right away. It was easy for me. Right out of high school, I never had to worry about what are you going to do in life. I always knew I could easily have jobs in electronics. So that's one nice thing. I never had to think, whoa, where are you going to go? How does life work? And the hot product of the day. What would you say it is today, the hottest product in the world?
iPhone. Water.
iPhone 4. Anybody? I would. But in the day, it was the Hewlett-Packard 35 calculator. The first scientific calculator that engineers could use to replace slide rules to calculate transcendental numbers like sines and cosines. You type in digits instead of estimating on a slide rule where it's lining up. You type in digits, you get the perfect answer every time, never makes a mistake. Sold for $400. That's probably $2,000 of today's dollars. $2,000, and yet within 5 years, no more $10 slide rules were going to be sold anymore. Every scientist, every engineer had to have this calculator. Hottest thing going, and I bought one with the money. Steve Jobs had said he knew how to sell blue boxes, and we sold a few. That was our first company. It was funny because I would sell blue boxes, I'd make the blue boxes. I just wanted to build it, I didn't want to sell them. But I would sell them to get the money, but I would make my own calls, long distance, I would pay for it. I never used a blue box to save money. I only used the blue box to explore the phone network of the world and see how far I could get talking operators into thinking I was New York, and I would call a London operator and have her extend it to a Tokyo operator and have it pass around the world to the phone next to me in the dorm. I'd talk in one phone and hear it in the other phone a second later. It was so cool. So I owned a Hewlett-Packard calculator. Well, Hewlett-Packard somehow heard I was a hot designer. And they brought me in, interviewed me, instantly gave me a job designing those calculators. The greatest product in the world. Unbelievable. The greatest company in the world at the time. Hewlett-Packard, founded by engineers, started by engineers all through the management structure. They were building the products in every one of their divisions that engineers use. It wasn't today's Hewlett-Packard. They were building the test equipment engineers use. So the ideas for new products, they had total communication from top to bottom. Anyone could talk to anyone. You didn't have to go through a structure of an org chart to talk to anyone. They didn't, labs were not, the parts, the storerooms were not allowed to be locked at night. If an engineer is in working at night, needs a part, it had to be open. David Packard himself took an axe to one of the doors once when he walked in on it being locked. And they had a policy that if you could have the parts for something of your own design if your supervisor approved. Your own design are the things that you really improve your own intelligence, your own ability to create things. That's your development. You learn a lot more building something for yourself, for your home even, than you do in college. You know, universities would send you to college courses at Stanford. Hewlett-Packard would send us to Stanford too. But this was just a great company to work for, and I was an engineer for life. I believed in engineers were the best, most honest people in the world because a calculation had to work or not. It was absolute truth. And truth is the apex of all good. And that's sort of how I thought. Didn't really have any organized religion. I could think out for myself how to be nice to people. I like to say, thank God for making me an atheist, but everybody beliefs are fine. I'm not a one-sided, you have to be my way. So anyway, I decided, Hewlett Packard, I saw some older engineers. I said, you don't have to decide to move up the org chart and go into management. And managers are managers, because that's political. And I was going to be totally unpolitical in my life because of bad things that happened to me, largely related to the Vietnam War and learning things about the government and how they worked with me personally. So I didn't want to do that. I wanted to be an engineer for life. And here was a company I could be an engineer for the rest of my life, designing computers and writing programs. And that was what it was about. So I was so lucky and happy in Hewlett Packard. Now back in those days, I was a real geek. In school, I was an outsider because I was just too bright. I was a genius at electronics and all this stuff, and people just didn't talk to me. My friends were just other weird little outsiders, and that's just how it was. It wasn't in the social norms. So I had very little hope of ever learning how to have a girlfriend, or a wife, or a family. Well, good. I would design calculators at Hewlett Packard in the daytime, come home, have a TV dinner, watch Star Trek, and then I would do some electronics projects at home. That was my life. I got to play with what I loved doing. I had all the time in the world. I started the first dial-up joke in the San Francisco Bay Area. You could call a number and hear a joke. Why was I the first to have done this? Unbelievably expensive. Back in that day, it was illegal in the United States to own, use, or purchase your own telephone. We had one monopoly company. It was illegal to own, use, or purchase your own answering machine. You could only lease the one that they had. And the one they had cost a fortune. It cost half as much as my apartment rental. And for a young engineer, your apartment rental's a big part of your budget. So it was expensive. But I believed so much in computing. I got this machine and I recorded Polish jokes. Every day, short little Polish jokes. I got up to 2,000 calls a day. The most called single line number in the United States, I think, without extensions. And the Polish people got on me for defaming people that were Polish. My name's Wozniak. So I said, what if I change them to Italian jokes? And they said, that's fine. This was before political correctness. So I wasn't doing really bad things. Switching to Italian, I was making people laugh. And to me, humor is such a good remedy, such a good medicine in life. It makes way up for more than the people that wind up getting offended. Now, I was given a graduation speech to engineering at the University of Colorado about 10 years ago. And I used as an example of the way people think, and they don't go down to the logical foundations of things. Here's a joke that I told. What do you call 4 Mexicans in quicksand? Cuatro Cinco. I still think it's very funny. It doesn't say Mexicans are bad people in any way. It doesn't defame them. Boy, did I get put down for that one. I've offended so many people. And, why don't people, it's not that, it doesn't offend anybody. It's a funny play on words. So now I have to tell it, what do you call 4 Spanish teachers in quicksand? Cuatro Cinco. Okay. After dial-up joke, it was cool. I love that dial-up joke so much. And I got my own little card thing up. I got the first good, eventually, so many phone calls I got, anybody with a similar phone number would get 100 wrong numbers a day. They called me up, my husband works at nights and he's got to sleep in the day. Okay, I called the phone company, changed my number, and then after months I called the phone company back. Did that fix the problem? No, lots of people are complaining. We have one number a little bit different. I said, I've got to have an easy to dial number, and I tried for 2555555 in Cupertino. What a great number. And they said, we aren't signing on the 5,000s. I said, how about 2556666? That was my first good phone number of my life. From then on, I've been trying to collect good phone numbers in my area. I got one with 6 digits the same in Cupertino. 9969999 at one time. But I could never have all 7 digits, and the reason was, in those days, San Francisco and way up northern California had area code 415. San Jose and way down south had area code 408, and they didn't duplicate any of the numbers within. San Francisco had all the good prefixes like 222, 333.